Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had several people have asked me recently, particularly one again this morning, just a bit ago, and I replied to him. He's asking me, hey, why are you choosing to train without a belt? Because everyone knows I have a belt. It's in storage. Yeah, I've got a 10 millimeter lever belt sitting in storage right now. I don't use it. Just like you guys haven't seen me break out my Adidas Addy Powers to front squat in. I have a pair. And I guess my answer is multifold in nature. Now, a lot of people are like, but you know what? There's EMG studies showing that belts increase ab and core activity. They're showing it. Don't you follow the science? Well, my answer to that would be if you guys believed that EMGs were the be-all, end-all, and that's exactly what we should use 100% of the time to pick our exercise selection, then here's my question. Why do any of you do anything other than standing presses and face pulls for your delts? Because if we went purely off EMG data, those are your hands down best exercises ever invented for your overall shoulder development. Nothing else competes. But we know that's not necessarily the case. And I'm not saying that wouldn't work. You could obviously do just those two types of exercises and build full shoulders. But the same people actually do other shoulder exercises besides those two who want to discuss EMG data. Same thing. Do you guys do concentration curls for your biceps instead of weighted chin-ups? Do you believe that deadlifts are possibly the best lat builder known to man? All right, if you don't accept those possibilities, you obviously don't rely on EMG data to draw 100% of your conclusions, right? Because if you did, that's the conclusions you would draw. I don't do that either. The point is, yes, there seems to be extra activation in the studies we've seen in the core when a belt is used. The problem is that when it comes down to specificity of training, it doesn't seem to carry over. Now, the argument would be, well, if you wanted to compete in powerlifting, it makes sense. Since you can use a belt in competition, why wouldn't you always train with a belt? And you know what? If a person's goal was to purely powerlift, and they did not care at all, zero zip zilch about any other performance element. Like they didn't care at all about their performance, their appearance, nothing but how they do in a powerlifting meet. Is that was their only reason for training, with no concern for any other fringe benefits like athleticism, being able to take a hit in the guts, anything else. That would be a logical argument. The problem is that for me personally, I want to be better than just a competition squat, bench, and deadlift. I have other exercises I want to be better at. I want to be overall more athletic and have an overall strength base. Well, having an overall strength base requires me to be strong without a belt also. And there's some points to consider here. First of all, when it comes to even powerlifting competition, how many world record holders can you guys think of who spend most of their year training without a belt in raw powerlifting, not equipped, but raw? How about Dan Green? He's a big proponent of it. Jamie Lewis. Jamie Lewis actually walked into competition his first powerlifting meet and became number 2 in the world in his class, and he didn't wear a belt. He didn't train with a belt, didn't wear a belt, walked in and became number 2 in the world in his class in powerlifting without a belt. He put a belt on and then broke the records. The argument could almost be made, if you're not going to break a record, and it's not going to affect your placing, like in Jamie's case, since he chose to put a belt on to go from being second best in the world to being best in the world. He trained without a belt. How about Big KK? Raw deadlift, doesn't wear a belt in comp. Some chick in Africa just this year broke a big raw powerlifting record. She doesn't own a belt, didn't use a belt in comp. Broke a couple world records this year. And she says, I don't know, I just don't like it. So this idea that you have to wear a belt to be the best obviously isn't true, and a lot of these guys seem to benefit. People honestly saying, well, they would be even better if they trained with the belt year-round. Are you sure of that? I'm not sure of that because in my experience, it affects your training in a different way. And something I have observed multiple times in my life watching lifters, and a lot of coaches have noted this over the years, guys who train with belts to build their strength up oftentimes are not as strong as you would expect when they take the belt off. In other words, they're kind of one-trick ponies. They can lift with a belt. They can't lift without the belt. Some people say, what do you mean it can't be that bad? I've seen it firsthand. I have watched guys build up to a 450 plus squat without a belt. What happens when they throw a belt on? They hit 480, 490, 500. I've also seen guys who squat over 450 with a belt. Guys who are squatting 460, 470, 480 with that belt on. They take the belt off and they're always like, well, I use the belt after I get through my warm-ups, after I go over, I'll go up to 315 without a belt, and then I put a belt on for anything over that. Well, it turns out that 315 is about all they can handle without a belt once they do that. And I've seen it, watched it, and it's almost comical to watch. I've seen guys and other coaches have written about this, that same guy, when he takes his belt off, you put 365 on the bar, and he struggles with it. He has a good morning it up. You try to put 400 on there, and he can't lift it. If the person has never tried to lift 365 or 400 without a belt on, and they only lift 315 without the belt during their warm-ups, they struggle with 365, and something like 405 becomes pretty much impossible, and they can be a 470, 480 pound squatter. Whereas in the guy who built a 450 without the squat can smoke them when the belt is taken off, and he might be on their same level when the belt is put on. And the question becomes, did the belt really help them? Because the guy who trains without a belt can throw a belt on and learn to use it at any point and add pounds to his total, but he can train hard and heavy all the time without the belt. He also has overall better athleticism and better core strength. So I very much question this fact, because if these people were right and that this extra EMG data proves that it's causing better transfer to all activities with your core, not just the belted, then all these guys who do this would be strong without their belt also. And they're reasonably strong. I'm not going to say someone who squats 365 is weak, but if they squat 470, 480 with a belt, and they have to take 100 pounds off the bar and they struggle with that when the belt is off, the belt is definitely a crutch at that point. The belt is definitely a crutch at that point, and I don't want to be in that situation. And here's how I view belts. Yeah, I mean, they can be a useful tool. They can be a useful tool, but it's also another piece of equipment that you have to buy, that you have to maintain, that you have to pack to the gym. All right, these belts aren't cheap. The belt I have right now, I think, cost me about $150. They break. Anyone who lifts hard and knows how to use a belt correctly is going to break a couple of belts over their training career, if not more. They break. If you're strong and you know how to brace your core against that belt, you will break those buckles. Even though those lever buckles, again, they break. We've all seen several of them break. We've seen them break in comps. We've seen them break in gyms. They break. They wear out. It's an expensive piece of equipment that you have to maintain, that you have to pack around to the gym, that you have to take extra time putting on when it is of questionable benefit. It's of questionable benefit. I've simply never observed athletes who train with a belt year round end up being stronger or better than the guys who train without the belt. Once the guys who train without the belt throw the belt on, they're just as strong when it comes time to show off in competition. So we're having to buy extra products, pack extra kit around, put it on, maintain it, everything else, when it doesn't really seem to have, in my observation, any real tangible benefits outside of competition. Furthermore, it comes back to the point of these guys will train with the belt, and then they don't have core strength. And that's the one thing that I hate, is guys who say, well, I put it on after I'm warmed up. Why would you do that? Why would you ever train different on a warm-up than you do on your big lifts? Do you change your technique on your bench press or your deadlift on your warm-up versus your heavy sets? No. You try to use the same bar path. You try to use the same tempo. You warm up. The reason we do warm-up exercises is to prime our nervous system to lift more weight, to get the motor pattern down, to get in the groove, right, so that your technique cleans up. If you warm your technique up a bit, you can oftentimes have better motor unit recruitment and better form. That's why warming up reduces injuries, because it can ingrain better form. You warm your technique up, you warm your nervous system up. Well, the belt changes your bar path. So if you're warming up without a belt, you just wasted your time. Why did you bother? You completely wasted that warm up. So it kind of is silly when they do that, and then again, they still end up being week without the belt, so it's not like they gained any benefit by warming up without the belt. That's the one thing I would say, is that if a person is going to use a belt, use the belt in any session you plan on using the belt, and separate your beltless training and run those separately. I mean, that would be my advice. You need to have beltless phases and then belted phases if you're going to use the belt at all. But again, I'm just not a fan. And again, I know a lot of companies, they market their belts and like, oh man, I can't believe you're saying that. People are going to buy less belts. So what? You're still going to wear them in competition, unless you want to be one of those guys who wants to just be awesome and win meets and break records without belts, because they're out there, guys and girls both. But yeah, I just don't see the need to train with one right now. I don't see the benefit. A weaker core. I don't want that. I want to be strong on all my lifts at any given time, any day of the week, in my street clothes if need be. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.